Every man who has survived a toxic breakup carries a story that could freeze your spine. Not just pain, revelation. Because once you've seen how certain people transform during separation, you can't unsee it. The mask falls off. The entitlement comes out. The manipulation becomes surgical. And suddenly, the person you loved looks at you like a resource, not a human being. Let me show you exactly what I mean. There's a pattern among certain exes that's so predictable it's almost boring. Yet when it happens to you, it hits like a freight train. The ex who cheats and then cries that she deserves support. The one who walks out and still feels entitled to your lifestyle. The one who blows up the relationship, but wants to walk into court wearing angel wings and crocodile tears. These aren't random stories. These are psychological blueprints. And if you don't understand them, you're the next target. I had a client, let's call him Aaron, who worked 80-hour weeks building a small business from scratch. His ex-wife. She didn't work a single day in 10 years. Not because she was sick, not because she was limited, but because she didn't want to. She didn't feel inspired. She needed time to find herself. Meanwhile, he was grinding, creating the very lifestyle she depended on. When they divorced, what did she say? I deserve half. I was there. Not contributing. Not building. Just existing in the proximity of success. Certain people genuinely believe that if they spent time near your achievements, they're entitled to them. It's like standing next to a chef while he cooks and then demanding half the restaurant. This isn't partnership. It's resource extraction disguised as emotional connection. And when the relationship ends, that entitlement mutates into something darker, victim psychology. Here's the part most men don't see coming. The person who leaves you often expects their next chapter to be a cinematic upgrade, sparkly, exciting, filled with instant validation. They imagine applause waiting for them. They imagine freedom without consequences. They imagine happiness without effort. But reality hits harder than truth. Loneliness. Bills. Responsibility. A dating market that doesn't care about their fantasies. Suddenly, the world isn't cheering for them, it's ignoring them. And instead of admitting they miscalculated, they rewrite history. They blame you for everything that went wrong in their new life. They create a narrative where you drove them away, you ruined their joy, you made them feel trapped, even when they were the ones who detonated the relationship. I know a man whose ex-wife left him for her co-worker. She floated out of the marriage like she was ascending to greatness. 6 months later, the co-worker dumped her. And who did she call? Her ex-husband. Crying. Sobbing. Saying he made her emotionally unstable and that's why she left him. She literally blamed him for her own affair. This is what I call the emotional boomerang effect. They leave reality hits, they boomerang back with regret dressed up as blame. But that's not the only motive behind these breakups. Some departures are premeditated. And I mean strategically calculated. Another client's ex-wife planned her divorce for 2 years. Not because she was unhappy. Not because there were problems. But because she calculated her financial gain. She created spreadsheets estimating what she could squeeze from the settlement. She calculated how long she could avoid working. She even researched highest-earning divorce outcomes like it was a job. This wasn't heartbreak. It was economics wearing a wedding ring. But you know what happens when the numbers don't add up? When the settlement comes back smaller than they fantasized. They explode. Not crying, raging. Because the plan failed. The upgrade didn't materialize. The fantasy collapsed. And suddenly, you become the villain for not being wealthy enough to fund their freedom. But the darkest pattern, the one that destroys men quietly, is branch swinging. It's when a person doesn't leave a relationship until they have another person lined up. They build emotional affairs in the shadows. Sometimes physical ones. They pick fights to justify the exit. They create distance so they can claim we grew apart. Meanwhile, they're already gripping the next branch. Then they leave with dramatic flair, tears, speeches, accusations, while their backup partner waits in the wings. But here's the beautiful irony. 6 months later, when their rebound realizes they were just a transition object. When the fantasy falls apart. When the new partner gets tired of being a temporary emotional crutch. Guess who suddenly wants to talk? Guess who wants closure? Guess who misses the stability you provided? And guess who they try to crawl back to when the world gets cold? You. But by then, your eyes are open. You've seen the patterns. You understand the psychology. You're no longer the man who believed the mask, you're the man who survived the reveal. And this is where the story gets deeper, much deeper. Because what happens after they realize you won't break? What happens when you improve, succeed, grow stronger? That's where the jealousy, sabotage, and emotional warfare begin. Because the moment your ex realizes you're not collapsing, the moment she sees you aren't drowning in regret, the moment she recognizes that you're not sitting in a dark room replaying memories like a broken movie reel, something inside her snaps. See, the person who leaves you expects one thing above all else: your destruction. They expect you to fall apart, lose focus, spiral emotionally, lose money, lose motivation, lose yourself. Your downfall is supposed to validate their decision to leave. Your suffering is supposed to confirm their fantasy that they were right all along. But when you do the opposite, when you get in shape, fix your finances, build your career, regain your identity, and become happier without them, it triggers a psychological wound so deep they can't hide it. Because suddenly, the narrative collapses. Suddenly you look like the winner. And they look like the person who threw away stability, loyalty, and a man on the rise. And trust me, that's when the jealousy kicks in like a system malfunction. I've seen this hundreds of times. A man starts improving after breakup, he gets fitter, sharper, focused. He meets new people, maybe even starts dating someone younger, kinder, more peaceful. He starts laughing again. He starts sleeping again. His energy returns. And what happens next? His ex, the same person who left him, cheated on him, or manipulated him, suddenly becomes curious again. She starts texting randomly. "Hey, how have you been? I was just thinking about you. I saw something today that reminded me of our time together. Oh, I found this old photo, look, smiley face." Translation: she can't handle the fact that your life is improving without her. Because in her fantasy, she was supposed to upgrade. She was supposed to glow up. She was supposed to walk into a better future while you crumbled. But reality doesn't follow fantasy. Reality follows consequences. And the consequence of reckless decisions is regret. Let me give you a brutal example. A woman left her husband because she felt underappreciated. She was in her early 40s, had 3 kids, and thought she could walk into the dating world and be handed a buffet of high-value men. She left expecting fireworks. She found a dumpster fire. She dated men who used her, ghosted her, or treated her like an afterthought. She dated men who weren't interested in commitment, just convenience. And when she tried going younger, she realized younger men weren't impressed by her life experience. They just wanted something temporary. 2 years later, after being thrown around the dating pool like a beach ball at a concert, she tried reconciling with her ex-husband. But he had moved on. And not sideways. Upwards. Healthier woman. Kinder woman. More feminine woman. Less drama. No manipulation. And that's when the jealousy destroyed her. Not because she wanted him, but because she couldn't stand seeing him get what she believed she was entitled to. Few things trigger an ex like seeing you become the man she always feared you could be. Let me repeat that. Your transformation is her punishment. And this is where the story flips again. Because her jealousy doesn't just stay internal. It becomes behavior. Suddenly, mutual friends start saying things like, "She asked about you. She wanted to know if you're seeing someone. She seemed bothered that you look happier." Or she'll start appearing in places she knows you'll be. The gym. Your usual cafe. Your social events. Not to reconcile. Not to apologize. But to check if her narrative still holds power. Because she needs to see you broken. She needs to confirm she mattered more than you're showing. She needs the emotional validation that she was irreplaceable, even though she left you. But here's the psychological golden rule. Your improvement is kryptonite to a manipulative ex. The stronger you become, the weaker her control becomes. The more disciplined you become, the more chaotic her emotions become. The more focused you become, the more unfocused her strategies become. And when a manipulative ex loses control, she shifts tactics. If jealousy doesn't pull you back, if nostalgia doesn't re-hook you, if curiosity doesn't reel you in, she moves to the next weapon: blame shifting and moral inversion. This is where she takes her worst behaviors, cheating, lying, neglect, abuse, and flips them onto you. Suddenly, she's the victim. Suddenly, you're the villain. Suddenly, everything was your fault. I once saw an ex who cheated with 3 different men blame her husband for not making her feel special. This man worked 2 jobs to fund her lifestyle, but apparently that wasn't enough stimulation for her fantasy brain. This is what I call distortion psychology, the ability to bend reality to protect ego. And this distortion doesn't stop at blame. It expands into finances, custody, reputation, and emotional warfare. Because once she realizes she can't control your emotions, she will try to control your life. When emotional control fails, manipulation evolves. It becomes colder, sharper, calculated, weaponized. Because when a certain type of ex realizes she can't pull your heartstrings anymore, she reaches for the next available lever. Your finances, your reputation, your stability, and, if you have kids, your relationship with them. And this is where the breakup stops being emotional and becomes strategic warfare. Let me start with the financial angle, because it's the first battlefield most men are dragged into. You'd be shocked how quickly "I love you" becomes "you owe me" the moment separation hits. Suddenly, the same person who treated your efforts like background noise now feels entitled to your resources, your savings, your assets, your lifestyle. Again, not because they earned it, not because they built it, but because they were nearby while you did. I've seen exes who never worked a day suddenly claim, "I supported you emotionally, that counts as contribution." I've seen exes try to take half of businesses they didn't understand, half of assets they didn't know existed, half of investments they didn't care about until the divorce paperwork came out. One man discovered his ex had opened $50,000 worth of credit cards in his name during the marriage, all behind his back, and then tried to blame him for financial neglect when the truth surfaced. This is not an accident. It's not confusion. It's financial manipulation dressed as victimhood. And if you don't understand how it works, you get eaten alive. But the financial manipulation is only the first phase. The second phase is far more sinister. Reputation destruction. See, when certain exes realize they can't win the breakup emotionally, and they can't win financially, they go for the one battlefield where lies spread faster than truth. Your social circle. They start planting seeds. He was emotionally abusive. He didn't care about me. He was controlling. He had anger issues. He wasn't the man you think he is. Fabrications. Half-truths. Rewritten history crafted to make them look like the hero or the victim, never the villain. And here's the psychological twist. They don't do this because they genuinely believe it. They do it because they need a story that protects their ego. If they destroyed the relationship, they need a story that says "I was forced to." If they cheated, they need a story that says "I was pushed into it." If they left, they need a story that says "I had no choice." The story is never about truth. It's about comfort. And when comfort collides with accountability, comfort wins every time. But the nastiest battlefield, the one with real collateral damage, is children. When a manipulative ex realizes she can't control your emotional state or financial stability, she may try to attack what she knows you care about most: your kids. This is where psychological warfare becomes nuclear. I've seen exes turn kids into messengers. Tell your father he owes me money. Tell your father he disappointed me again. Tell your father I'm hurt. This destroys a child's emotional stability. It turns them into soldiers in a war they never enlisted in. And it gives the manipulator a twisted sense of power. Even worse, some will weaponize custody, threaten to block access, create fake emergencies, use tears and chaos to paint themselves as the better parent. In one case, a woman hid her pregnancy from an affair partner, let her husband believe the child was his, and after leaving him, demanded child support for a child that wasn't his. She argued he accepted the father role, so he must pay. Entitlement is a disease with no symptoms until crisis reveals it. But even that level of manipulation isn't the peak. There's an even darker pattern. False allegations. This is the atomic bomb manipulators drop when they feel loss of control. Men being accused of things they never said, never did, never even thought. Fabricated stories of abuse, intimidation, or threats. Why? Because allegations create instant leverage. Because drama gives them attention. Because chaos keeps you off balance. And because they know society listens to tears before evidence. I saw a case where a woman accused her ex of threatening her at a time when he was provably at work with timestamp logs and security footage. This is why documentation is not paranoia, it's survival. When emotional attacks fail, they escalate. When escalation fails, they fabricate. When fabrication fails, they collapse into desperation. This is when they start hoovering. Urgent texts, fake emergencies, sudden crises, I need you, we should talk, the kids miss you, I'm going through something. It's not reconciliation. It's not love. It's psychological gravity, an attempt to pull you back into orbit. But here's the irony. The more chaotic she becomes, the calmer you must become. Because the moment you match her chaos, you lose. Now we enter the part most men never learn until it's too late. The defensive phase. Not emotional defense. Not verbal defense. Not prove yourself defense. I'm talking about psychological, tactical, and legal defense, the kind that turns the tables, drains her power, and puts you back in control of your own life. Because here's the fact. A manipulative ex doesn't need your anger. She doesn't need your sadness. She doesn't need your love. She needs your reaction. Reaction is the currency she feeds on. Take away your reactions. You take away her oxygen. Let's start with the most important weapon every man needs. 1. Documentation. Every text, every email, every voicemail, every threat, every contradiction, every manipulation attempt. Save everything. Because manipulators rewrite history in real time. They deny what they said yesterday. They distort what you said last week. They fabricate events that never happened. And when you confront them with facts, they melt. They twist. They pretend confusion. They play innocent. But when a man has receipts, there is no debate. Courts understand evidence. They do not understand tears, theatrics, or tantrums. One client survived a false abuse allegation because he had screenshots showing calm conversations on the exact day she claimed he exploded on her. Another man proved he was at work during a supposed incident because he kept digital timestamps. Evidence isn't paranoia. Evidence is protection. 2. The Grey Rock Method. This method is simple. Be boring. Be dry. Be unreactive. Give nothing. You become a grey rock. Emotionless, uninteresting, unavailable for drama. Why does this work? Because manipulative exes feed on emotional reactions. Anger fuels them. Sadness fuels them. Defensiveness fuels them. Explaining yourself fuels them. Arguing fuels them. But a man who gives only yes, no, okay, I'll be there at 3, let me know, shuts down their entire psychological strategy. A manipulator cannot play chess with someone who refuses to move pieces. 3. The extinction burst. When you stop reacting, she escalates. When you stop feeding the fire, she pours gasoline. This is called the extinction burst, the last, desperate attempt to regain control. She'll text non-stop, create chaos, threaten you emotionally, start new fights, drive to your house, blow up your phone, use the kids, create emergencies. This isn't her gaining power. This is her losing it. When the extinction burst hits, you stay calm. You stay neutral. You stay distant. Because once the burst ends, the control ends with it. 4. Hoovering. A Hoover attempt is not love. It's not regret. It's not healing. It's control disguised as emotion. Hoovering comes in many forms. Times I miss you. Times I've been thinking about us. Times I'm not okay. Times the kids need you. Times I'm sorry for everything. Times I'm changing. Times can we talk? Times I had a dream about you. And the deadliest. I'm going to hurt myself if you don't answer. This is manipulation, not vulnerability. You don't engage. You don't negotiate. You don't try to save them. If they threaten harm, you call emergency services, not because you care less, but because that's the only responsible step. Hoovering is psychological bait. And you're not a fish. 5. Business relationship only. If you share kids or finances, there's one rule. Treat every interaction like a business email. Short, clean, factual, neutral, professional. No personal updates. No emotional explanations. No relationship talk. No reminiscing. A manipulative ex wants emotional access, not logistical clarity. You give clarity, not access. 6. Witness protection strategy. You'd be shocked how many men are saved by simple precautions. Times public handoffs. Times doorbell cameras. Times third-party witnesses. Times parking lot exchanges. Times security footage. Because some exes will claim you yelled when you didn't. Claim you threatened them when you didn't. Claim you broke something you never touched. Your best defense. Make every exchange observable. Make every interaction confirmable. Make every moment disputable with evidence. The more transparent you are, the more exposed they become. 7. Parallel parenting. You cannot co-parent with someone who sees you as the enemy. So you parallel parent. Separate rules in separate homes. Minimal contact. 0 attempts to influence the other parent. 0 emotional conversations. 0 shared decision-making unless legally required. It's not ideal. But it's better than warfare. Here's the part nobody talks about. The part no lawyer explains. The part no therapist warns you about. The part your friends don't understand unless they've lived it. Rebuilding yourself after a toxic ex isn't just recovery. It's rebirth. Because the man you were before the breakup doesn't exist anymore. He was naive. He was trusting. He ignored red flags. He tolerated manipulation under the disguise of love. He sacrificed himself for someone who would have never done the same. That version of you died the moment the truth hit. The day the mask came off. The day the lies surfaced. The day you saw the betrayal, the entitlement, the lack of loyalty. But here's the beauty. You don't rise from that fire as the same man. You rise stronger, sharper, more aware, more disciplined, and impossible to break the same way again. This is what I call the Phoenix Protocol. The psychological blueprint men follow when they rebuild themselves from the ashes of destruction. Let's break it down. 1. Radical acceptance. The first step is the hardest. You accept that she will never be the person you imagined. Not the woman from the honeymoon phase. Not the woman from your memories. Not the woman you wanted her to be. You accept that her version of love was transactional. Her version of loyalty was conditional. Her version of commitment was temporary. Acceptance is painful, but it frees you from illusion. And illusion is what kept you trapped. When you accept reality, you stop bargaining with the past. You stop replaying scenarios. You stop expecting accountability that will never come. You stop wishing she'd see your worth. Because your worth doesn't come from her validation. It comes from you rebuilding your life without her. 2. The physical rebuild. Almost every man who rises from betrayal starts with his body. Because discipline in the physical realm creates discipline in every realm. You hit the gym. You walk miles. You run. You lift. You sweat. You rebuild muscle, posture, strength, and energy. Why? Because your body is the foundation of your confidence. Because your health is the foundation of your stability. Because motion creates momentum, and momentum creates transformation. And here's the irony. Nothing proves you're healing more than the moment she sees you again and realizes. You're becoming the man she hoped you would never become, the man who no longer needs her. 3. The financial rebuild. You create a financial fortress. No more joint accounts. No more financial chaos. No more unnecessary spending. No more emotional decisions with financial consequences. You save. You build credit. You invest. You get serious about your work. You upgrade your skills. You get into a career path with growth. Because financial freedom is emotional freedom. When a man is financially stable, manipulation loses its grip. Nobody can control a man who owns his future. 4. The mental rebuild. This is where men underestimate themselves. Because betrayal trauma is real. Sleepless nights. Overthinking. Flashbacks. Anger bursts. Racing thoughts. Emptiness. Numbness. Identity crisis. But each day you stay disciplined, in your body, in your finances, in your routines. Your brain rewires itself. You start reading again. You start learning again. You start thinking clearly again. You start planning again. You start analyzing patterns instead of drowning in them. Your mind becomes sharper than it's ever been. Because pain forces growth. And growth creates clarity. 5. The emotional rebuild. Real healing doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being controlled by feelings. You learn emotional neutrality. You learn how to sit with discomfort without reacting. You learn how to observe manipulation without engaging. You learn how to allow feelings to exist without letting them steer the wheel. This is what destroys a manipulative ex completely. You become emotionally unavailable to her chaos. She can scream, cry, accuse, guilt trip, romanticize, blame shift, rewrite history. And you remain steady. She can't hook you anymore. She can't destabilize you anymore. She can't drain you anymore. You become a man of emotional discipline, not emotional reaction. 6. The spiritual rebuild. Some men rediscover faith. Some rediscover purpose. Some find brotherhood. Some find community. Some find passion. Some find a mission that gives direction to their life. Because when you lose someone who betrayed you, you gain something bigger. Yourself. And that self, purified by fire, sharpened by pain, strengthened by survival, becomes unstoppable. 7. The upgrade. After everything you've seen, after everything you've learned, after every manipulative tactic you recognized, after every lie you survived, you become a man with boundaries of steel. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't ignore red flags. You don't chase validation. You don't overinvest in chaos. You don't negotiate your worth. You don't allow access to women who drain, deceive, or destabilize. You choose peace over chaos, discipline over comfort, purpose over distraction, growth over illusions. And this is where the transformation is completed. You become the man you should have been before she broke you, and the man she never believed you could become after she did. The story doesn't end with her. It starts with you. You survived betrayal. You survived manipulation. You survived false narratives. You survived heartbreak. You survived the version of you that didn't know better. Now you rise. Not to prove her wrong. Not to win her back. Not to retaliate. But because a better life is waiting for the man who refuses to stay broken. Your comeback is the real revenge. Your growth is the real answer. Your peace is the real victory. And your future is the one thing she can never sabotage again. Because you finally learned how to protect it.